My name is Marlon Dumas, and I'll have the pleasure of lecturing this course. I'm a professor of information systems at the University of Tartu and leader of a research group in the area of business process management and process mining. And in parallel, I am also co-founder of Apromore, a research startup dedicated to bringing the benefits of process mining technologies to companies around the world. This course is going to introduce the various techniques in the field of process mining. The goal is to have a 360 degrees view of how process mining techniques can be used to take data from enterprise systems and turn them into insights about the performance and the conformance of various types of business processes in an organization. And this course complements other courses that are available to the students in the Masters of Data Science of University of Tartu, including our sister course on business process management, which deals with management aspects of business processes, business data analytics, which deals with customer analytics and product analytics, and business analysis, which deals with how to use qualitative techniques to take fuzzy business questions into solutions that can be implemented in an IT system. The course will have 13 lessons, of which this one is the first one. Every session will consist of a lecture, which I will record and make available online. And the practice session will consist of hands-on exercises where we will kind of try to crack through different types of business questions using real-life data. We're going to see various top techniques in the field of process mining: automated process discovery, conformance and performance mining, comparison of multiple variants of a process, what-if analysis using simulation, and predictive process monitoring. Throughout the semester, we'll have a number of homeworks, and that will culminate in a team project that we will execute in the last few weeks of the course after the lecture period. There are 4 assignments in total that will be posted on the website of the course, and a project and an exam in June. There is a website associated to this course, courses.cs.ut.ee/2021/PM. And there is a workspace that we'll be using for our internal communication. And I'll be giving you a number of support material for reading, including chapters of our textbook, Fundamentals of Business Process Management, which we can find in our library, and also some pointers to various online tutorials so that you can get to know the capabilities of the process mining tools available out there. Before I enter into the topic of process mining, I find it important to define what it is. And to be able to define what business process mining is, I need to start by defining what is a business process. To explain what is a business process, let me take some concrete example of what will happen in a company if there were no business processes. How will we see a company? So this is an example of a company somewhere in the world. It's called Metcash. And this company does the following. They buy and sell grocery products in wholesale. They buy products from producers like agricultural producers, or most frequently from factories that produce different types of grocery products that you will find in the supermarket. Also from importers who bring them from abroad. And they then channel them through some distribution channels. Sometimes they put them in a warehouse that they call a distribution center. The picture that you're seeing here is one of their distribution centers. And their customers are supermarket chains or grocery stores, or occasionally also some of the large restaurant chains who buy in bulk from them and then sell it in retail. So this wholesale company called Metcash does a very large number of things. If you look at how a day at Metcash looks like, and you could go around the different offices of the organization, look at people's screen, go to their warehouse and check what's going on. You will see they are very busy themselves and their automated systems doing lots of stuff. Like, for example, receiving orders, purchase orders from their customers who want them to send them, for example, a ton of toilet paper. They have to then look at those orders. They have to ensure that they can deliver them on time. If they cannot deliver them on time, they have to negotiate delivery days. They have to manage delivery delays in some cases. They have to schedule deliveries, notify about the delivery times, handle all sorts of exceptions, package the products, load them into the trucks, unload the products from the trucks, repackage them. So all sorts of things happening in this organization. If you could see all the different activities or tasks that people in this company are doing, it will be in the order of tens of thousands. When you have a small company up to 10, 20 people, you know, the manager can almost enumerate you the tasks that the workers perform on a daily basis. They kind of almost know what everybody is doing today. When you have an organization of 100, 1,000, 10,000 employees, you can nobody can see all the tasks that are happening. There are 50,000, 100,000 types of tasks being performed every day in those organizations. So we have to find a way of putting some structure into the equation. And that is where business processes come on board. Now, there are two ways in which you can see how work is organized in a larger company. One of them is the classical way, which we call the functional decomposition. So you have what we call functions or teams or groups or units, depending on the company, that take care of tasks that require different specializations. So everything that has to do with money, you know, receiving invoices, getting them paid, collecting the payments, making payments, confirming payments, doing the accounting, gathering all the numbers in order to send a report to the taxation office on a monthly basis. That is done by a function called finance. And everything that has to do with sales, getting new customers, onboarding new customers, talking to customers to kind of understand if they are satisfied, how can we make them buy more, how can we serve them better, that is done by a function called sales. And there is another function out there, for example, that takes care of, in the case of this distribution center, this wholesale organization called Metcash that I showed before, there is a whole area handling warehousing, you know, keeping the products in the right places, managing a bunch of robots that are collecting products and packaging them in order to prepare them for being loaded into trucks, unloading trucks. That's called warehousing. They might also take care of logistics, like hiring the trucks that are going to be collecting the products and moving them around, or that logistics department might be a separate function. And there will be like around 20, 30 different broad functions. And each of them has a manager, e.g., the manager of the financial function is going to be called the chief financial officer, or the manager of the sales office is going to be called a chief sales officer. And that's how we can structure an organization. And this is all very beautiful, and it is done, and it is great. But there is a problem with that kind of organization, not a problem, but a limitation, is that it doesn't take into account what the customer wants, what the customer needs. So business processes bring you an alternative way of decomposing all these 50,000 tasks that are happening in a large organization. You have customers, and customers need certain things. You have suppliers or business partners or assets. Your human resources are an asset. Your IT resources are an asset. And you need to use those assets in order to deliver value to your customers, to serve the needs of the customers. So the way we're going to do it is that we're going to take those thousands of tasks or activities that the companies perform, and we're going to group them into something called business processes. And a business process is going to be something that takes all these assets we have from ourselves and from our suppliers in order to deliver something of value to the customers. Let me be concrete here. I showed you before something around 20 plus different activities that are performed at this company called Medcash. Which starts, you can group them, those activities I displayed into two groups. Some of them have to do with handling a purchase order that we receive, like a supermarket chain needs, 500 packs of toilet papers delivered at one of their stores. So you receive an order and you have to check it, you have to confirm it, you have to negotiate it, you have to package the products, notify the shipment, etc. I'm just showing a handful of tasks. One of these processes that I'm showing here might have anywhere between a few dozen tasks and possibly even 200 to 300 tasks, depending on the complexity of your organization and of your process. There are another set of tasks among those that I displayed in the previous slide that have to do with the case where I receive an invoice from one of my suppliers. Let's say I contacted one of the importers and they send me 1 ton of toilet paper, and now I have to, so I send them a purchase order because I needed it. Somebody in the organization needed that to make sure that we have enough supplies to serve our customers. So we receive a purchase order, we obtain confirmation, we negotiate the delivery, we get a truck coming in with all that ton of toilet paper, we have to get it out. Some robots put it in the warehouse, distribute it around. We will eventually receive an invoice because we have to pay for that ton of toilet paper we just got. And we have to verify that invoice, make sure we are not paying more than we should. If we pay less than we should, we can keep silent. But if we pay more, we don't want to. We have to schedule the payment. And we might have to follow with tons of exceptions about like the payment was not received, or it was incomplete, or we don't agree on the amount of the invoice. We have to go back and look at our contracts. It's kind of lots of stuff happening in the context of that process. And if you see the organization in these terms, you're going to go from having to manage thousands and thousands of activities to having to manage, still a few hundred processes, but it's kind of more manageable. You can then put managers behind each of these processes, and you can give them targets and performance indicators that they have to fulfill, and they can organize the resources in order to perform these processes as efficiently and effectively as possible. So that's for the example. Now, conceptually, we will say that something is a business process if it contains a number of activities, for sure. Also, a number of events. The difference between activities and events is that activities are things that take work, that take a duration, that we have to do. Like, for example, loading the truck or unloading the truck is an activity. Someone has to do it. And an event is something that happens. So, for example, if I receive a purchase order, I didn't actively do something to get it. I just got it. So events are things that happen and that trigger certain activities. In between a few activities, we might need to take decisions. So, for example, we have to serve an order and a truck is full. But if we move something from this truck to the next truck, we can put in this order that is late. So we have to decide, do we delay this order for this very important customer, or do we delay the other order? So we have to make lots of decisions. People down in the ground need to make heaps of decisions when they execute their business processes. This processes involve a number of people. I just mentioned it: managers, workers in the warehouse, objects, materials, robots that are doing stuff, or materials that are being moved around in the process. And these processes are triggered by a need. That's very important. A process does not exist if somebody doesn't need it. And the person who needs the process is called the customer. And the customer can be an external customer, that's my client, or it could be an internal customer. That could be, for example, the warehouse managers who just found out that there is too little toilet paper and we will not be able to serve the next orders if we do not replenish it. So that can be a customer. We can have customers that are inside the company, customers that are outside, but in any case, a business process does not exist if there is no customer to serve. And the purpose of the customer is to translate the need of the customer into an outcome that is of value to the customer. To ground this, let me give you some examples. So one of the most common types of processes that you will find in an organization is the order to cash process. The order to cash process starts when you receive a purchase order from one of your customers. You have to serve it, you have to package it, you have to deliver it, and then you have to receive an invoice, send an invoice, and get paid for it. So there is a need. A customer needs you to ship something, and then there's a customer, and at the end you deliver an outcome. In this case, the products have been delivered and the customer is happy. There is another process called purchase to pay, which starts from the moment you need a product and you send a purchase order to the moment that the purchase order is paid. And there is another process called, in a government organization, for example, you will find a process called an application to approval process, which starts from the moment the government receives an application. For example, someone who wants to build a new shopping center. So you have to examine that, look at the environmental impact, look at how it fits in the urban space, what will be the impact on the traffic in the city, etc. It goes through a very large number of checks. And then at the end, we decide whether to approve or not approve. And there might be some appeal procedures happening if we do not approve it. So that application to approval process for a new shopping center, that is also a process that you will find in a government agency. Another process, very common in any organization, is an issue to resolution process. If you have a problem with the IT systems in the company, you will do a support request, also known as a ticket. You will raise a ticket, and the ticket will be investigated. It will be assigned to someone. It will be reinvestigated. It will be resolved, tested. Different types of tests will happen. And at the end, you will have an outcome. I want to explain a little bit more what we mean by an outcome and what types of outcomes there are. Let me take an issue to resolution process that starts when a customer has a problem called an issue. Like, for example, my washing machine is not working. They call the call center. They say, I just bought a washing machine yesterday, brought it home. It was working yesterday, and today it's not working. The call center will dispatch a technician into perhaps the house, have a look at the washing machine, check if it's plugged. Oh, it's not plugged. Let's plug it. Check if everything's working. The technician might discover that there's one of the components of the washing machine is broken. They will go to the parts store to retrieve it. They might then claim, look, this part was probably broken when you took the machine in yesterday. You broke it, so the warranty will not pay for it. The insurance company says, I will not pay. You broke it during the transportation. Your responsibility. Customer is unhappy. So this process can have negative outcomes. The fault might be repaired, but not in a timely manner. Might take 2 weeks to repair it. Customer is not happy. The fault might be repaired and the customer pays for it. And the customer did not expect to pay for it because they just bought the washing machine yesterday and they thought this will be covered by the warranty, but it wasn't. so they are unhappy. So you can have outcomes in an instance of a process, an execution of a process, which we will also call a case, might lead to a negative outcome or it might lead to a positive outcome. And naturally, what we want in process management is to improve the process in such a way that we maximize the positive outcomes, the positive experiences of our customer. So we want the fault to be repaired. A positive outcome will be the fault was repaired immediately with minor interventions, or the fault was repaired and it was covered by the warranty and the customer is happy about it. So what we see is that work in an organization can be structured into business processes. Each of these business processes is triggered by a need from a customer and leads to an outcome. And what we want is that our outcome is of value to the customer. And that is how we manage an organization by means of business processes. Okay, so in this course, we're going to be talking about business process mining. So how to improve processes using data. But before we get there, it's important to say a little bit broader, what is a business process management, which is a broader set of techniques than business process mining. So business process management is the art of improving the performance of an organization. And so it all starts with what we saw before. Business processes are a vehicle that takes assets, our own assets and those of our partners and suppliers, and transforms them into positive outcomes to the customers. So there are chains of activities that deliver value to a customer. However, there is unfortunately in life more in a company than just serving the customers. Unfortunately, a company has to also take into account the competition. I might be serving my customers very well, but my competitors are doing the same. And guess what? My competitors are doing it more efficiently and they can do it for cheaper. So my customers start moving to my competitors. So I can be doing my process very well and I can still be failing as a business because, for example, I'm not taking into account the price expectations that my suppliers are creating. Or I might be doing very well, but I might not be complying with regulations. COVID regulations came in. I need to ensure that my workers in my warehouse are at a safe distance. That means I cannot have more than 50% of my workers in the warehouse. I need to adapt to that. If I don't, then I will be slapped with a big fine and I will fail as a business. Sometimes I have to deal with economic recessions, with decreases in demand, with increases in demand. I need to be able to adapt to those. And finally, and not less important, there are other stakeholders of my company besides my customers. Serving my customers is important, but I also have shareholders in a private organization who want me to generate steady profit. So if I am serving my customers, great, but I'm doing it at a too high cost and I'm not generating profits, my shareholders are not going to be happy and I'm going to be failing as a manager. So we have to take into account not only the fact that we have to serve the customers, but also the competition. We have to take into account our competition, our regulatory environment, and the demands from our stakeholders. And business process management is a discipline for improving performance in order to be able to strike a balance between all these competing demands, competitors, customers, stakeholders, and my regulatory and business environment. Okay, so the question then is, so business process management is about improving the performance of the processes. So what does it mean to improve the performance of the process? First thing, if I am a customer and I can choose between two, say, food delivery services to say something, Colt and Dolt are two competing companies. They deliver food from restaurants to your house via an online mobile app ordering system. Which one do you prefer, cold or dolt? So there are, generally speaking, and from the perspective of the customer, three main dimensions that you will consider in making your choice between alternative offerings. You want the F option, faster. You want it to be cheaper, C, and you want it to be better. So you are going to select the provider that will deliver fast or at the time you want, that will deliver at a lower cost for you, and that will provide you a better service to you. So that is basically what is going to drive you. So there are three dimensions of performance that you need to take into account: time, cost, and quality. And quality might mean different things. It might mean product quality, like in the case of a food delivery service, the quality of the food, or whether or not the food is delivered warm or is it delivered cold, how well it is packaged to protect it, etc. It can also be the quality of the delivery. Is dolt more reliable than cold? Does sometimes cold brings you food that you didn't ask for? So instead of bringing you this pizza, it brought you a different type of pizza that you did not order. So all these things are going to contribute to your perception of quality. And they're all things that we need to manage in a business process. So, and this is the funny thing about improving performance, or the challenging aspect of improving performance, is precisely that there are multiple dimensions. I mentioned three, but there are actually more. You need to be fast, you need to be cheap, and you need to be better. And in real life, you cannot have them all. You have to, if you want to improve in one, you have to often give up on the other. So for example, this is a process at a restaurant. A customer arrives, they are greeted, they are seated, somebody takes their order, brings the menu, then takes the order, serves the meal, maybe several times, then presents them a bill, and the bill gets paid, and the customer is happy. So that is one way of delivering the service of dining for a customer, or having lunch. So that is one way of doing it. But at some point in time, there might be competition around you, or there may be a change in the expectations of customers due to that competition. And as a result, you need to improve. And improving might mean different things. It might be that you need to get cheaper. You need to get cheaper, but you need to keep your quality. How can you do that? Well, there are different ways. You can outsource work to the customer, so you have less work to do, and you can therefore be faster and possibly even cheaper by doing a buffet. Under some conditions, that can work. Another way will be, you say, instead of serving 12 different types of dishes, I'm going to restrict it to like 3 dishes. And that way, I am going to be faster, and I'm going to be cheaper because I need less types of ingredients, and I'm going to have less waste in my process. But what happens is that the customer is going to have less choice, and some customers might walk away because today you didn't have the vegetarian dish that they were looking for, unfortunately. So you might be delivering less quality. You can eliminate work, like eliminate cooking, or you can automate some tasks. For example, automating the order taking or the booking so that your workers don't have to deal with that. You can try to kind of automate certain aspects of how food moves around in your kitchen or outside your kitchen. You can sometimes resequence. It's very funny. We're going to see how sometimes just changing the order of the activities but doing the same activities, just in a different order, can significantly change the performance. Like, for example, if I bring your order, if I first ask you to order and pay, and then I serve you, somehow I can set up a process that is much faster than if I have to go and take your order, bring you a menu, then take your order, then bring the food a couple of times, and then ask you to pay at the end and bring you a bill and you pay. So we can sometimes accelerate the process just by moving around activities. Or we can make our restaurant larger to be able to have more space and that our customers feel better. So there are so many things we can do to improve the process, and each of them improves some aspect like quality or time at the detriment of another aspect, like, for example, cost. So if you make your restaurant larger, it will be nicer for your customers, but it's going to cost more expensive. So business process management is the art and science of designing, analyzing, executing, and monitoring business processes with the aim of improving their performance in the direction that the managers of the business find most suitable given the multiple demands that they have around them, So it can be about making them faster, making them cheaper, or making them better, or other performance dimensions that we will see later. So that's an important kind of introduction to business process and business process management that I wanted to give you before I talk to you about what is process mining and what we are going to see during this course. So process mining is a set of techniques. So it's no longer like a discipline, but rather a set of techniques that take data that comes from so-called enterprise systems in order to help managers improve their processes. In other words, in order to support business process management activities. Any organization out there of a certain complexity beyond like a handful of people will have certain systems to support their work. For example, organizations might have something called an ERP system, an enterprise resource planning system, to manage their warehouse, their production, their logistics, their delivery, and sometimes some of their human resources and payroll processes. It's like a back-end enterprise system. Some of the most widely used enterprise systems out there will include SAP or Microsoft Dynamics or Oracle, PeopleSoft, etc. So very widely used systems. There are also other types of systems that are commonly used are systems specifically designed to manage customer-facing processes. They are usually called CRM systems or customer relationship management systems. And these processes support all sorts of marketing processes like managing marketing campaigns, sales processes like providing quotes to customers or handling orders from customers, and customer service processes like handling complaints from customers. These enterprise systems, be it ERP systems, CRM systems, so a CRM system like Pipedrive, for example, they record a lot of data about the processes they support, including data about the order to cash process or about the purchase to pay process, etc. Process mining is basically a family of techniques that takes as input the data from these systems and allows you as an analyst to look into the data in order to discover the process, meaning understand how it is executed, and to analyze it and understand how you can improve it and by how much you can improve it along any performance dimension we have mentioned before. Be it a temporal dimension or a cost dimension or a quality dimension. And we will talk a lot about next lecture about different ways of measuring this performance along each of these dimensions. And at the end of the day, process mining is about staring at the data, crunching the data, making the data confess so that you can determine what is the best way of improving my business process. Now, how does it work? First, to do process mining, you need to have a system, an ERP system, a CRM system, etc., that is supporting the business processes you need to analyze. And usually it's there. These systems have stored every transaction that is coming in and out in a database. You can tap into that database, run a number of queries out of the database, and extract the events that signal that some activity happened in the process, that it started or that it was completed. You can then prepare that data, transform it in any ways, and we'll see in this course various transformation techniques. And you can then start analyzing it, and that's where process mining in the proper sense kicks in, using a broad number of techniques that we will be seeing in this course. The starting point of everything we will do in this course is something called an event log. An event log is a data frame. So if you're a data scientist, you know, and you have done Python or R, you understand what is a data frame. It's a big table with lots of columns in non-first normal form. And for it to be an event log, it has to have three columns. It has to, every row in the table should tell you something about the execution of an activity. So there has to be a column that designates the activity. Every row should indicate when did that execution of that activity happen. So we have to have at least one timestamp column, sometimes more. And every row should be part of a process, specifically of an execution or an instance of a process. An execution of a process, like when you have an order to cash process and you receive one order and you handle that one order, that execution is called a case. So every event log will have at least one case. Sometimes, as we will see, several ones. If you have those three things, then you can use that event log for different purposes. So we might have a database in a system or a stream of events. We will extract it as an event log. We will feed it into these so-called process mining algorithms, and these algorithms are going to produce several types of artifacts. We will see that from an event log like the one you see before, we can generate different visualizations of how the process is performed. Something called a process map that we will see in a couple of weeks' time, or we can generate more advanced visualizations in the form of so-called BPM-A models. In addition to being able to extract a process model from an event log, process mining allows me to measure the process performance, generate different types of overlays, color codings on top of my process maps or my process models, or animations in order to understand where are my bottlenecks, where do I need to improve the most, where am I reworking a lot. And we can generate also a lot of performance dashboards. We'll be talking a lot next week and in the following ones about performance dashboards. How do you visualize the performance of the process along various dimensions and perspectives? The third thing we might do in process mining is to find out if the process is being performed as we expect, or if there are deviations with respect to our expectations. That is a set of techniques that we call conformance checking or compliance checking in some cases. And we will be seeing a number of those techniques as we move along, because very often when people need to get work done, they don't always follow the process, and very often for very good reasons. And it's important to understand why people are not following the process and what is the impact that is having on our compliance with respect to regulations. And finally, the fourth thing you can do with process mining is to compare different variants or subgroups of your process. So for example, if you have a process and you perform it in Finland and you perform it in Estonia, you can use process mining techniques to compare your performance in Finland versus your performance in Estonia in order to discover what could you be doing better than you are doing at the moment. So we are going to see various techniques for comparing multiple variants of the process using data and to discover why one variant is performing better than the other. Sometimes you get to the point where you can point out, these are the places where my process needs to be improved. For example, needs to be speed up. How can we speed it up? Or for example, we could automate some of these tasks. We could develop and deploy soft bots to automate these parts of the process. And then you want to know, if I take the pain of developing, testing, and productionizing a soft bot to automate certain parts of my process, or if I put a chatbot to automate some of the interactions with my customers, by how much will it improve my process? Will it really help me get rid of the problem, or will it have almost no effect? For that, to answer that kind of questions, we are going to be using what-if process mining techniques, particularly techniques based on simulation. And finally, once you have improved your process and you deploy it, you want to be able to monitor it. And in particular, you want to be able to detect problems at runtime and even before they happen. So we will be seeing how we can use event logs in order to build predictive models that are going to generate predictions that are going to help me improve my business process. So these predictive monitoring techniques are going to be able to answer questions like, for example, is this execution of this process going to end in a positive outcome or in a negative outcome? Or will I be able to resolve this issue for this customer on time within 5 days, or will I be late? Or will this case generate an abnormal amount of effort for my workers? Will I have to rework some activities? Can I avoid reworking these activities because of a mistake or a defect? Can I detect that I just did a mistake so that I can fix it straight away and not be able to fix it later? So we're going to see that predictive models can help us to answer a lot of these questions. And this leads me to the outline of the course. The course today was just introductory. Tomorrow we'll do some exercises in the practice session to review some of the concepts we saw today, like what is a business process, how to find the activities in a business process is important if you want to analyze it, to know what are the activities of a process, who is the customer in a process, what does the customer want. So we'll be doing a lot of exercises to review those using concrete scenarios. And then in weeks 3 to 12, roughly, we'll be going through different techniques for process mining, starting with automated process discovery, conformance checking, performance mining, variant analysis, and predictive monitoring, all these techniques I introduced before. Before that, though, in week 2, we are going to talk about performance measurement. How do you measure performance? And dashboards. How do you visualize performance for different purposes? And then finally, in week 13, which is the last week when we have coursework in this course, we will be talking about more business case analysis and project management aspects of process mining. I might even bring a guest lecturer on board to talk to you about their experience doing process mining in a real company. And that's what I wanted to tell you for today. Today was about giving you an overview of what is going to come ahead in this course.